Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Jiu-Jitsu and Coffee, episode 3. Today our special guest was Marc Bracy, a purple belt under David Werner. Unfortunately, we lost about an hour of the audio, so I tried to salvage it and couldn't. I was recording from the wrong audio device, but we still have about 2 hours and 15 minutes of audio and video, so I'm going with that. We're going to start off with some of our conspiracy related stuff and then end talking about jiu-jitsu. I hope you guys like the episode. We're getting better. Stay with us, and the next episode should be better. All right, so let's get on this topic. Because the next section, we got 2 more sections left. Okay. So the section is controversial topics, conspiracy stuff. This is stuff I'm into. I love conspiracy stuff. So I ask everyone this question, and it's kind of a rhetorical question, but at the same time, how woke are you? 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, how woke are you?
Probably like a 3, but that's actually something I wanted to ask you about. Because you were saying like you kind of wanted to have like a woke meter, right? I personally think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, my opinion doesn't really matter, but if that should be something that everybody goes through, right?
Yeah.
But I am not interested in how woke I think I am. I'm more interested in how woke you think I am.
Yeah.
Right? Because
so
what kind of woke? Like just conspiracy theories, or like
it's everything. It's woke. It's everything that. So let's talk about what I think woke is. Right. So that's a good question. What is woke? Woke is your desire to seek the truth. So for example, if you hear, let's just say you've heard someone go, man, the earth is flat. Did you just go, fucking retard, everyone knows the earth's round? Or did you actually go out and research the flat earth theory? Or if someone said, man, there's a secret base on Antarctica, did you just like, fucking retard? Or did you go out and say, well, let me, basically, that to me is woke. Woke means, it doesn't mean you're like, oh yeah, the earth is flat, or oh man, we've never been to the moon, or oh yeah, you don't have to agree or disagree. But are you a truth seeker? So a term that they use, it kind of came out after 9/11, is a truther. Are you a truther? A truther is someone, it doesn't necessarily mean, I don't think, that you're saying 9/11 was an inside job, but it means you seek the truth. So I think people, because I've met some people that just, they're mainstream everything. So 9/11, no, mainstream. Yes, yeah. Have we been to the moon? Mainstream. The government said we have.
Yeah.
What diet do we eat? Yeah. Mainstream. I'm just mainstream. Whatever the government tells me. So woke is, I think today, there's, woke is doing your own research, forming your own opinion, and honestly, like challenging mainstream on everything,
I would say overall, based on what you're saying, that I'm a pretty woke individual, with the exception of I don't do a whole lot to try and change people's minds. I do research on topics that interest me, and then I'll have an opinion on that. But I try the best I can to not be super vocal about something that I am not 100% sure, that I have not spent time on, dissecting, right? I've taken 6 months of boxing lessons, but I'm not going to tell anybody how to box. You know what I mean? I've never taken a Taekwondo class, so I don't know if the way you're kicking is right, and I've got no reason to change that. And I feel the same way about the vast majority of topics. And I feel like at the end of the day, we should all be doing our part, right? Whatever we determine that to be. And I feel like if we all did our part, then all of these issues, most of those issues would probably just go away. We wouldn't need a lot of things. I have a pretty good example. I argue with my cousin Jennifer a lot because she is, I think, on the definitely the extreme side of liberal. She has chosen the side, she follows the line, and she wants all my fucking money. She wants all the homeless to be fed. She wants all of it, and I love her for it. What's interesting though is that she feels that way, yet still works at it. Every once in a while, she gets some money together, gets some friends together, and she makes these bags with food and toothbrushes and shit, and then they go find people that need this stuff. And I think that's great. And I asked her, I said, this is when, you know, Trump was running and stuff. I said, who do you want to win? Like, I didn't know. And Bernie hadn't been fucked yet. So she was like, I'm for Bernie. Like, she goes, I think we should raise our taxes so we can take care of these people and stuff. And I said, wow, that's crazy. I said, what makes you think the government is trustworthy enough to take your money from you and then give it to those people, right? What makes you think that by the time it leaves your pocket, it's going to get where it needs to go? Who are you going to trust, right? She's like, well, I can't answer that question. I said, yeah, but look, every time you get together, right, you put these bags together. I said, how many at a time do you do? She's like, I do hundreds. And I'm like, that's great. I said, you get your friends involved? Yeah, we get involved. We do hundreds, sometimes thousands, right? I'm like, that's your effort. Like, you went into your community and said, I want to make an impact, so I'm going to get my friends together and the resources that I have, and I'm going to provide this for these people. Nobody came and forced you to do that, you know? And I can tell you right now, if I came into your pocket and I grabbed money to accomplish that goal, I probably wouldn't spend it on that. And you would never know.
I remember seeing something on like how much money the Red Cross actually went to like the charities, they say. It was like 90% like to salaries, right? And I think less than 10%. So for every dollar you gave, less than a dime made it to the actual cause.
Yes. I worked for a brief time in a call center doing fraternal order of the police, like fundraising as a job.
I always hang up on that one.
You should.
You don't buy the calendar?
I donated enough to the police. Sorry guys, I got some police friends, but you've taken enough.
Yeah. Well, they'd say, how much of my money is going towards it? And they have like these list of rebuttals that had to be true. And it was like 15% of whatever you spend will go towards the cause. And I found that funny just on like the nonprofit side in general, is nonprofit doesn't necessarily mean people aren't allowed to make money. Yeah. They're just not in business to make money.
Yeah.
Well, so there's lots of nonprofits that are...
a salary of a nonprofit employee can be up to $250,000 last I looked. Like if you're a CEO or CFO, an officer of a nonprofit organization, you can pay yourself up to $250,000 a year.
Yeah, that's a healthy living. Yeah, healthy's not even the word. That's straight up to the 1%. But yeah, man, I woke. I don't know.
So let's get into some woke questions. Here we go. So these are the popular ones. They're not necessarily my favorites, but these are popular conspiracies, and just want to see how you respond to some popular conspiracies. And you can answer them as quick, and you're welcome to chime in if you have questions or anything. Obviously, Brendan's been pretty quiet this far. Do you think a secret cabal controls our government, or do you think our government's in charge?
I think there's a machine that works behind the scenes, but it's not necessarily like a designated group of people. I think there is like obviously like corporate people that drive a lot of decisions, but I don't see how there could be a secret cabal. And the government is so inefficient, I definitely don't think that they're like working for us, you know?
It's interesting. Like up until Trump, like for the last, I don't know, 30 years or something like that, there's this group called the Bilderberg Group. You've heard of them, yeah. But they interviewed everyone who became president. So it's funny because it's like they would choose them and then market the shit out of them to make sure that they won, like spend unlimited funds.
Sure.
And they basically make up the Council on Foreign Relations too, the CFR. But like there's a lot of people that believe that our government is just ran by bankers, and you know, like
it kind of is, but I don't think there's like a group, you know, that, I mean, they can certainly have the power to manipulate and influence the democratic process, and probably have in their favor and been successful doing it. But that's still just, wouldn't you agree that ultimately that's just really powerful lobbying?
And that's a problem. That's what makes it all possible, isn't it? Really, lobbying.
It's
I mean, how can that be? How can that even be legal? That's like the most illegal shit in the world. Like, I can just buy votes, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think where it started, it probably had good intentions. Hey, I have a business to run. Will you represent me and tell these lawmakers what I would like? And it's like that in and of itself, I don't have a problem with. But as soon as corporate money gets spent, that's where my first problem is, because I think it takes the I think it fucks up the democratic process, because if you have a corporate contribution of any kind, that is super unfair, because that corporation can't possibly be representing the interests of all its employees, and that corporation can't vote as a voter. PepsiCo votes for Donald Trump, whatever. That's not possible. So why do we allow money and people that have zero to do with the actual election process into the most important part of the election process?
Yeah.
Because if you can't get funds, you obviously don't have the support you need. And I think that that should take care of itself, because it doesn't matter.
That's the biggest problem, because if you have 1% of the population, or whatever it is, I know it's a minuscule percent. I know it changes. It's getting smaller from what the last I've read. That owns 99% of the wealth, and if you have all the money and lobbying's legal, every law is going to be geared to the wealthy people, right? Like it's going to be it's just going to get worse and worse, which it has.
You almost need like a separation of church and bank, or excuse me, of state and bank, because capitalism as an idea is amazing, because you can chart your own path and you can work as hard as you want to get where you want to be, and you can start a company and you can become rich, right? But the ugly side of capitalism is where these corporations have so much money that they are able to purchase influence that negatively impacts the American people in the electoral process. You know, it's a damn shame. So
I had this like idea that, and I thought in the future this would be how it would be. Like I envisioned, like how would they make laws in the future? Right? Like how would that happen?
Yeah.
Because honestly, the way we do it today is because it was the only way it could be done 100 years ago. It was impossible for everyone to vote. We want to raise the speed limit. You couldn't get everyone in the United States or in a community. It was too hard to vote on all these laws. So what you had to do is elect someone to represent you. But today we have the internet and we have all these massive databases. Why wouldn't you just let the people? I mean, honestly, that's the whole point of our society, right? It's like we are supposed to be democratic. We are supposed to. If whether or not pot should be legal, it should be a vote by the people. Why can't you just have a vote online one day and the people decide, okay, pot's legal or not? Instead, we elect people that then do things that they promise not to do.
Yep.
You know, that's messed up.
Yep. And the damn shame of the whole thing, and I feel like you're going to agree with me on this, is when you see people passionately arguing left or right, how sad that is.
Yeah.
You know, because they're the ones that actually don't understand.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying I do, but I know that if you have if you're super hardcore Democrat or Republican,
I think it's two sides of the same coin.
It is.
It's like,
and I'm not saying I lean more liberal than conservative, right? Because I lean a little conservative. I'm a business owner. I think it's kind of natural, but I have a lot of humanity in me, so I'm very moderate, as most people are. But somehow they fucking figured out how to take large groups of people and make them make a choice.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like no choice is the right choice, yet there's so many people that are out there going bonkers that if they would just stop for a second and take a look at the big picture, that they're the cog in the wrong fucking wheel.
Yeah.
You know? And I support bringing people over to that side, but I don't do a whole lot of reaching out and arguing and stuff like that. Although I like to. I have plenty of opinions.
Let's go on to the next question here.
All right.
Conspiracy list. You think 9/11 was an inside job?
Damn. Maybe. Right. It's fucked up if it is, though.
Yeah,
man.
it is.
Super fucked up.
I'm sold. I'm sold that it is personally. I've watched. There was like a year where I watched all the ones I could watch, and it sold me.
It's hard to watch Tower 7 go down and not.
It didn't get hit by anything. Like how does and it free fell. It didn't just go down. Like it didn't. You know, if there were even like the funny thing is even if that thing had fires going on inside, it probably would never fall. It just burned like.
It could fall to one side because the fire has to start somewhere, you know.
But it free fell, and it's a long building. That doesn't even make sense. It was there. Other countries have done studies and said both of those buildings were controlled demolitions.
Yeah.
Other countries have came back and said those are controlled demolitions.
Yeah.
I'm sold that there's so much evidence, man.
There really could be.
You know, because here's the thing. If our government knows all these people out there, these conspiracy theorists are saying, "Oh man, it's an inside job," you know there was footage from the Pentagon. Like, why wouldn't the government just go, "Well, here you go. You know, here's footage. It's an airplane that hit it, right?" But there was 2 leaked frames from like a guard post, and it shows a missile. It's not a plane. It shows a missile. You can find it on the internet. You can see there's 2 leaked frames. And that is a freaking cruise missile if you've ever seen one. It's not a plane that hit the Pentagon. And on top of that, why would they? Well, anyway,
I'd be interested in seeing.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that.
I can send it to you.
Definitely send it to me.
It's a cruise missile. I'm certain. I'm sold. 9/11 was an inside job, people. I'm going to say it. So let's move on. JFK assassination. What do you think about that?
I think the world will never know. I think, from what I know of Lee Harvey Oswald, my personal opinion is that he was probably set up. He was probably set up because he was never known to be like a smart person.
Scapegoat.
The luck in which that you would have had to have the bullet do what they said it would do, or that it did. And then finding the stupid bullet, it's just too crazy. But there's no way to prove it. Dude's dead. I'm pretty sure the dude that killed him's dead. And technology wasn't good enough to give us anything definitive. There's nothing out there.
I'm going to be really repetitive episode after episode about this, but if you get bored, there's a documentary called Dark Legacy. Oh. And man, it puts some super compelling evidence that George Bush Sr. was behind the assassination of JFK. Like some really compelling evidence. And they say George Bush Sr. was the head of CIA and that he was rewarded with presidency for overseeing the assassination of JFK. And when you see the evidence they throw out there, it's pretty compelling evidence, right? And they catch him he lies straight up. One of the most amazing things to me in this documentary, and there's far more better than this in it, but what amazed me was that on one instance they're interviewing George Bush. Now, mind you, he was in the CIA at the time. He was very high up. They said he was and they said, "Where were you when JFK was shot?" And he says, "Well, I was at this place." And then they clip to 5 years later, and they ask him, "Well, where were you when JFK died?" And it was a totally different story. "Well, I was in this city doing this," and it's man, there's no way you would get that wrong.
Where you were.
You know, if you were alive at that time, much less if it were your job. But he clearly lied. Now, why would you lie? Well, so anyway, what JFK had done was he ended the Federal Reserve. That's the law he had put into effect, and they say that's why he was assassinated. And the first thing that I can't remember who his successor was. I want to say Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Dwight. Who was it? I can't remember. So don't quote me on that. I'm terrible with names. But anyway, whoever his successor was that came in there, that was the first thing he did was undid that bill to undo the Federal Reserve. Basically, he reinstated the Federal Reserve, so he was going to get away from a central bank. So all that makes it really interesting. But okay, let's move down.
He was Bitcoin before Bitcoin was Bitcoin.
Yeah. The Clintons are psychopathic murderers. True or false?
Fucking true. 100%. Maybe not Bill himself.
You're a 9 in the woke meter now.
Okay.
Yeah, man. Did you ever see the documentary, The Clinton Chronicles?
No. I don't need to see much, man. It's so fucking out there and
it's
obvious.
so obvious. And the fact that, like, these people think they're the good, the supporters of that side. Like, they're thinking, you picked the psychopath. You went with Trump. I'm like, what are you not seeing? Like, what rock are you under?
Yeah.
Like, the Clintons are psychopaths. I can't believe that. Man, there's a documentary called The Clinton Chronicles, and they show these lawsuits that were brought up against them. Like, even when they were coming up in Arkansas, and they were like he was the governor of Arkansas, and they had like his state trooper, the guy that was there to defend him, talking about this was the sickest dude he'd ever, had to protect. Yeah. And this guy, he'd constantly be dropping him off at women's houses while he had sex and waiting for him, picking him up, and people were trying to kill him, and, it's crazy. You gotta watch that. All right, so
think about this. Hold on, because I think we have to do one more thing to convince other people that these guys are fucking murderers, right?
All right.
They're from Arkansas. Nothing wrong with that, right? But they're like, who else do we know from their inner circle in Arkansas? Like, not very many people, okay? But there's a group, okay? I have a group of people, right, that I work with on a daily basis, and I've only been working with one or two of these people for a couple of years. But we know each other so good now, we barely have to talk on the phone or see each other or anything, man. Like, we know what's up. Like, he texts me an address, like, the information comes, right? So do I think Hillary Clinton sits in a thing and says, that person needs to die? Probably not. But I think that they are, like, have a group of people around them that know what the fuck's up, that nobody has to say much. Like, oh, this person's causing trouble, you know what's up. You know what I mean? Like, that way there's never a trail that, like, leads back to them. But it's just painfully obvious when you see the fucking trail of bodies over and over and over. And it's like, it's stupid how much shit they've done. Yeah. It's crazy. But people aren't like, with the left, the left-leaning media doesn't like to shine a whole lot of light on it.
It's like 200 people that they've done business with that have turned up dead now. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. Let's see. You think our government leaders you think our government's like infiltrated by child molesting spirit cookers?
Spirit cookers?
Yeah, so there's this whole term for it, right? Yeah, the Pizzagate thing, right? Like they get together and molest children and do these like weird sacrifices while they're eating like meals that look like bodies of people that they chop up, and just some weird ass ceremonial shit, right? Like supposedly this is our government. Like our government is. There's people that believe, and I kind of subscribe to it, honestly, that our government is overran by these sick ceremonial type people, right?
Maybe. I mean, the Catholic Church is still fucking kids. Yeah. And everybody knows it. Yeah. So whether Pizzagate is like could be real, it could be. It could be. And I don't necessarily think it's like a cult-like thing. Like, to me, it seems like a bunch of sick fucks that have figured out how to game the system and get what they want. Because there are sick fucks like that.
Well, the problem is it's the sick people that become the wealthiest and accumulate the most power, because it's a sickness when you can't become wealthy enough, right? Like, a well-tuned person will say, I've got all I need. And they will realize that they need to spend time with their family, right? Like, at some point in time, you're trading money for your daughter's time and your son's time. And the sick person says, I can't get enough money. And they get so unthinkably wealthy that they change the laws in their favor, right? Like they're out there. Those are the ones building our laws, and that's the thing. And they gravitate you, and they get to know each other behind closed doors, and go, "Oh, you like having sex with little kids? I like having sex with little kids. Cool." Yeah. I think that's the problem. But yeah, like I had read up on Pizzagate. There's some phenomenal documentaries out there. Like that's all WikiLeaks, Julian Assange putting all that out there, and he tends to put out legit stuff. But
I can't think of one time he's put out bullshit.
And if you read the emails that were going back and forth between between these parties, like Hillary was in it, and the Podesta, I don't remember his first name, but Podesta and all these other people, and they're talking code for children. Like if you read it, I'm like, they're talking code for which have this particular pizza is $60,000. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Oh, you should try it. You'll like it. Trust me. It's like the codes. Well, do you want it with sausage? I don't know. I haven't tried that. It's like, who in their 65 years old hadn't had sausage yet? Come on, it's like, and you're gonna pay $60,000 for a pizza. It's code, man. Like if you watch, you gotta read it.
I will read it, and I'll make that commitment to you because I'm interested in how they said it. However,
if you read those emails, like the only question in your head is, were those real emails? Because if they were, we got some sick people in our government.
It depends. It depends on what they were actually talking about, because there's definitely God, I don't even know how to explain this without being like super stupid, but sometimes you do things that are not necessarily with the rules, but aren't necessarily against the rules, but to avoid being an obvious person against the rules, you kind of codename stuff. So pizza could have been anything.
Yeah.
I want to read it.
Well, they were talking about from this particular pizza shop, and the owner of that pizza shop had already been busted for running child.
You're doing pretty good supporting your.
It goes pretty far down the rabbit hole. It's actually like if you get down that rabbit hole,
this place is fucked up.
If you go down that rabbit hole, you will be convinced. I can tell you right now. If you're not, I don't see how you can't be. But it's pretty crazy stuff. What'll even make it reinforce it more is if you become a Stanley Kubrick conspiracist, all right? Or conspiracy theorist, whatever the right word is. Stanley Kubrick, and we're getting ready to go down this road, but I'll hold off on one. Did you ever see Eyes Wide Shut? And it was about that was about some super wealthy people that, were getting together. And this was like, I don't know if you know this, but he actually filmed it in one of the Rothschild's mansions. Oh, and I don't know if you know this. He died the day after it was supposed to be, they finalized it, and there were people there, like when he went to this meeting and with the studio execs, and they said, we got to cut out 24 minutes of this, and he adamantly argued. You could hear him yelling. Supposedly people witnessed it, that you could hear him yelling, going, his contract said he had complete power over the film. The day after that he died, and they cut 24 minutes from the film. So as fucked up as that film was, there's 24 minutes, and people speculate they were going to show all this child sex molesting and killing of children, right? And Stanley Kubrick, this whole thing, there's so many. If you watch, there's a documentary out there called The Real Eyes Wide Shut, and it talks about, because Stanley hides shit in his films he had a 165 IQ. That's like crazy intelligent. Like he's like a fucking genius, like well into genius, right? He would hide shit in his films. The Shining, they say, was like a montage isn't the right word, but it was like a dedication to the fact that we did not go to the moon. There's parts in it when the kids got an Apollo 11 sweatshirt on, and there's a documentary out there called Room 203. I think it's called Room 203. That's the room it happened in, and that 203 has to do with the miles between the Earth and the moon, and there's all these hidden things, and when you see it, you're like, that's well beyond coincidence. Yeah. But basically, it was Stanley Kubrick's admittal for. They say he's the one who actually faked.
I heard that too.
Right. So it turns out Stanley Kubrick is like in every film he's done, he's like admitted he's like secretly left it out there to be found, where he's like tattling on these elites and the government, right?
Do you have a problem with like information presentation?
What do you mean?
Like in the tone and stuff in which like you hear certain things? Because I'm like so much more a skeptic in the vast majority of like things that I read and see on the internet, which keeps me from drawing like solid conclusions on how I feel or don't feel about certain things, right? Because like you're asking me, do we have a secret cabal controlling the government? And like, it's funny because no, I don't think that, but it's possible, right? So I think like every answer to your question is like, it's possible. So based on the shit that I thought was impossible that is now possible, like anything's kind of possible. So it's tough to like...
When you watch stuff like... Every night I watch something related to a conspiracy, to esoteric knowledge, to knowledge that they don't want mainstream. That's what I like researching. It's not necessarily conspiracy, it's esoteric knowledge. It's hidden knowledge. It's Illuminati related, or it's NWO related, or it's... I want to know about things that you're not supposed to know about, or it's about DUMBs, deep underground missile bases, or whatever, military bases, I meant to say. Or it's about aliens, or it's about Anunnaki, or whatever. I want to read about that stuff. But when you start watching so many, and you keep watching them again and again, you start to see parallels that those people didn't connect, and then you start connecting dots, right? And it's like you start to form your own more, researched opinions. Yeah. So I don't just take anything at face value, and I'm everything to me is gray. Everything, like there's no black and white. I'm not 100% certain of anything, but I feel strongly about certain things. So I won't bet. I feel strongly that we haven't been to the moon. At least we didn't on the first time. I know, actually, I would bet everything in existence on that. I would bet my future. I bet, because they have a documentary out there called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and they found the original footage of us going to the moon. It's the original footage. It's the footage they played on TV, but they found it unedited, where they're faking scenes. They're setting them up going, that looks like, that'll make it look like we're, out in outer space. And it's like, that's the actual footage. That's Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong, whichever one it is out there. It's like, that's them talking, And it's even brought up to him in documentaries like Astronauts Gone Wild, where this documentary guy, and they're like, how do you explain this? He's like, get the fuck out of my face, whatever,
Punched him.
So
I saw that
so
one.
Our government does lie to us. We know that.
Yeah, 100%.
So backtracking, and we're halfway through this section real quick. Okay. You think we've been to the moon?
Yeah.
Did you know, are you familiar with the Van Allen radiation belts?
No.
So...
Is that in space?
Yeah, okay. Apparently between us and the moon, there's these radiation belts, and I've heard scientists talk about it, saying that we couldn't have went to the moon, or purported scientists, right? People who are claiming to be scientists,
sure, like Bill
Nye.
Legit scientists, right?
They seem to be intelligent people that knew that we could talk well above me on a scientific level.
Sure.
That were reported as credentialed, right? Like I don't remember what their names were or whatnot, but it was pretty convincing at the time. And then if you kind of do some research on the Van Allen radiation belts, they are real, and they are apparently there's enough radiation that a human can't pass through them. And there's people that claim that it would take 6 feet of lead to protect you to go through the Van Allen radiation belts. And we have not put a spaceship into space that has 6 feet of lead around it. Like that, we have definitely not. And even in Astronauts Gone Wild, they asked, it was either Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong, one of them. They said, how'd you get to the Van Allen radiation belts? And he didn't even, he's like, the what? He's like, the Van Allen radiation belts, you know about it? And he's like, well, and you could hear him back, the guy's like, well, our scientists must have known about it. Oh yeah, they must have, but it takes 6 feet of lead to get through that. So how'd you get through it? Because you didn't have 6 feet of lead, So it's stuff like that I'm like, that's some weird shit,
Yeah. I'd be interested in that too, but I do know that like space is full of radiation. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we have an atmosphere, is for us to be protected from that. So I don't know what the concentration is in comparison to the rest of being outside of our atmosphere, but I know that there are I kind of agree with Rogan on this, because the most I've heard is from his podcast, because he used to be a huge skeptic. And technology being what it was, like, and what we were trying to accomplish as a country and stuff could have absolutely been faked. But also, it was really important to get the marketing right, because we were right in the middle of the Cold War. We were racing our enemies to the moon. So naturally, when you're thinking of how are you going to move the propaganda, right? You have to have some fantastic images. The unfortunate part is how damn similar they are to not only being like the marketing materials, but to also being like the moon landing actual film. But you had a lot of dumbasses that thought you could get away with shit like that. You don't like. There wasn't even technology back then that gave us the ability to review those films, like, unless you were like in a studio. You know what I mean? All you saw was on TV. If you were I don't even know if they had VCRs then. So you only see it one time.
No,
Right. So if you're the people on the propaganda side saying these guys are only going to see this one time and I got to make it count, like, does it become worth it at that point to use some of your marketing footage to support the accomplishment that you made? Because what technology exists good enough for someone to be on the fucking moon with a camera beaming that shit back to Earth? Did we even have that reasonable amount of technology to do it in the shiftiest, grainiest, crappiest way possible? Because it's a really important thing that the country was trying to do.
Yeah. It
had a huge impact on our relationship with Russia in the long run.
I just have a hard time believing that if we went to the moon in the 70s or whenever it was, I don't know the year, and it's
69, I think.
As
68, 69,
as much better as technology has gotten, that we wouldn't have a base on the moon. Like, I mean, how we got an ISS, we got a space station, but it would be easier to maintain something on the moon than something floating in space. I mean, that's native to us, building structures on ground. It's like, why wouldn't we have that?
But one thing that a lot of smart people that are in the business or whatever have said is that we may have something called an International Space Station, but it's still in low Earth orbit. And everywhere we go, 95 times out of 100 is to low Earth orbit, and it's incredibly expensive to get to the moon. So to not only undertake, operating a base on the moon, that would have to be an international undertaking as well.
And there's space trash.
Yeah, space trash. The International Space Station is an international effort to put something in space. It's partly China, it's partly Russia, it's partly us. I think Britain and France are also doing something, and maybe China has their own.
But low Earth orbits, that's not impressive to me. That's not the moon,
But that's accessible for however price we were willing to pay, which was one of the reasons why we went to an independent rocket company that could figure out how to land rockets. Which is that not the fucking coolest shit ever?
Cool shit ever,
dude. Come on, man.
My cousin works for SpaceX and sends me a bunch of swag if you want a shirt or something.
Hell yeah!
Let me know, because
cool.
I got like
Teslas.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, you saw he launched one into space, right? He launched it. Right. He launched a Tesla into space.
The Roadster with Spaceman, right? A Rocket Man is his name.
That's pretty dope.
That is super cool. But I think I have a feeling that they went to the moon, figured out that there wasn't really much there, and didn't really have much of a reason to go back. Like, why? Like, really, why? You know
what amazes me about the moon, and I'm being repetitive, but the fact that it's locked to the Earth, that it doesn't spin. It's like, it's sitting there. We only see that side of it. Yeah. We don't see the dark side of the moon. Like, what are the odds of that? Look at anything else in any solar system or in our solar system or other moons of it. There's no locked. We just happen to have this satellite that's locked facing us, and we don't see the back side of it. And that, to me, because it's in orbit much like we are around the sun, or you know, everything else has some spin to it. The fact that its spin would exactly mimic our Earth, because it does have a spin, but there's you know, the odds that it would be locked to our Earth spin like that is ridiculous. You know, that's crazy, crazy low odds.
But perfect place to hide a base on the dark side.
That's all I'm saying, man. That's you know, that's all I'm saying. I didn't say it. You said it. It sounds kind of crazy when you say that.
I know, right? Wouldn't you think though that if we were able to get to the moon easy enough to build a base, we would probably have people like going to Mars by now? If you can, that means
you know, Elon Musk is going there, right? You know, he's hiring astronauts. Like we're going there. He's sending.
We are now because we're getting there. But we still don't have a financially responsible way to get out of low Earth orbit.
You know, okay, let me ask you this. This isn't one of my questions, but do you believe that if NASA puts a photo out and says, on NASA's website, says this was taken on Mars, do you believe that photo was taken on Mars?
Yeah, for the most part. I don't see
so are you familiar with the Toltec face?
Yeah, that's old school. That's old school Mars photo, right? The mountain face.
The mountain face. What do you mean?
The face of Mars?
Yeah.
No. That's not the Toltec face.
Oh.
Okay.
So this is a NASA photo, mind you. This is on NASA's website. I can send you the link to it.
I think I've seen something regarding this maybe.
That right there.
Yeah.
That's a monkey with a snake on its head. All right. Now someone was scouring through, there's people out there that just look for details on every slide that NASA releases, right? And they found this and zoomed in on it, cut it in half and flipped it over. That's all they did. So they took something that they found in a photo. They didn't manipulate it at all. The only thing they did was cut it in half and flip it over. And that is definitely a monkey head with a snake on the top. Now, NASA says that this photo was taken on Mars, and it is. I did verify. I did go out there myself and verify it's on NASA's website.
Okay.
That's some crazy shit. So that makes you question some shit. Either
it doesn't make me really question too much.
So you don't doubt that's real then, that's on Mars? Or you doubt that NASA's being honest, one of the two?
Neither. I'm pretty sure that probably is on Mars, and I'm also pretty sure it's a coincidental.
What?
Like, I don't know how I would ever see that and think, because somebody had to digitally manipulate that photo to show you the monkey.
But you can do it yourself. They didn't. The only thing they did was cut it in half and flip it over.
I understand that completely, but they did something, right? And
they saw something. They recognized something. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, and that's fair for you to think that. I just have to disagree on that, because the problem I have is that the evidence is in their digital manipulation. That's the problem I have. Does it look like a monkey's face? 100%, with a snake on top. I see that. But do I believe that that's something that you can actually see without that digital manipulation? And I saw the original photo, and I saw the half of it that wasn't made into the other half of the face. And neither of those, to me, look like a face. It just looked like a rock with shadows. But when you cut it down the middle and flip it, damn, it looks just like a fucking monkey with a snake on its head. I have to give you that.
I can't.
But that's where
I don't think that can be. I think that's well out of the odds of nature. I think that's well beyond the odds of nature. That is the fact that you have.
There's 0.0% chance
to me
that the wind can blow and the ancient waters could flow and not possibly have the sun in Mars' many different positions in relative to the sun, that the sun might not just one day just shine just right to have the shadows of that rock look like a little eye socket.
No, not.
And then when you digitally manipulate the
photo,
but
you can do it yourself. Like too many people have taken that.
I know. That's the problem.
It's not manipulation. It's just.
It is manipulation, because you have to manipulate it to prove what it is that you're looking at.
I don't know.
I have a big problem with that. But that's not to say that is not what it looks like either, because I don't know. I haven't been there looking at it. But as soon as you say, hey, my friend did this to the photo so you can see what it is you need to see, that's when I start going, that's when my red flags start going, huh?
Yeah, but then as someone who knows how to use, photo editing software, you can go do it yourself, and then you're like, oh,
that
shit.
makes me have an even bigger problem with it, because that means anybody can manipulate that photo and tell me it's a face.
No, it means the guy saw it's just, what would be the difference between finding a half of a body or a half of a foot or a half of, just because it's half, it's like the only thing someone did was replicated the other half to show you that it was a half. Like, that's how I look at it. That's how.
Yeah, but what about, have you seen the other face on Mars from like the 90s?
Yeah, that's and man, I believe that I can't remember. There was some people that wrote a book on it. It was a it was like they called it a coffee table book, where they had all these different. But that face has been weathered. But yeah, I know the face you're talking about, and it kind of looks like a monkey face, if you ask me. It's like a monkey face on Mars.
Here's a question for you. Let us say that's a face with a snake on the top of its head. Let's establish that. That's what it is. Okay? Archaeologically, how long has it been since there has been like evidence of life? I mean, I know they believe they've found water now at the poles or whatever, but how many hundreds of thousands of years have gone by since that statue is doing what that statue does? Because that statue's, like, if it was not laying on its side and it was up, it was representing something, right? So that means there was like people and stuff. But Mars is still a planet. Mars still has tectonic plates. Mars still has subsurface water, which means the planet is doing similarly in, I think, that of what Earth does. How, when we know that about how planets move and stuff, that thing would have to be hundreds of thousands of years old. Mm-hmm. How on earth would it be on top of the soil?
It's interesting, yeah. I mean, wind erodes things. Wind, it can happen.
Wind can shape a face out of a rock. If you let it.
Well, I don't know about a face like that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just. But yeah, I was curious. We'll go with that. That's a good enough answer for me.
Well, like the Sphinx. I mean, when they first found it, it was just a head, and the archaeologists were digging away, and there's the big old huge base to the lion, right? And
now they think it's way older too.
Yeah,
which makes sense.
The water erosion is the signs of how. Yeah, they think it's way older. Like, I think they're thinking like 13,000 years now. That's the last numbers I've heard on it. Graham Hancock speaks to it.
That's the stuff that fascinates me. It's not like what's out there, because I'm not smart enough for what's out there. That's Neil deGrasse and those people, right? But what's already here that we can't figure out. Like, that's the stuff that.
Plus, just seeing it in general. Man, when I was early 20s, I was fascinated by space and astronomy and all that stuff. I had this book that was like pictures from the Hubble telescope, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe how beautiful these like nebulas are and stuff. And then a company I worked for sent us to Colorado for like 2 weeks. We're building a horse barn outside of Aspen on this mountain for a couple weeks, and we got to go hiking and stuff. And I saw the Continental Divide with my own eyes, like in Colorado, and it changed everything. I was like, I can't believe I've been focusing on this blackness up here when there's all of this around us to like take in and look at. Not only the stuff that you haven't seen or you want to question from like the ancient world or whatever, but just the earth in general, man. It's beautiful. Beautiful place.
Yeah, for sure.
When's the next time the Anunnaki are coming back? Because they got it figured out that it's about every 3,600
years.
Yeah, so when's that 3,600?
We don't know. Don't know. They say it's relatively soon. We're supposed to be coming up on a cycle now, right? That their planet comes around every 3,600 years, yeah. And it's interesting because everything about the Anunnaki is sexadecimal. Everything. The orbit of their planet around our Earth, our planet's orbit, time. We took their time system. Supposedly the Sumerians 60 seconds in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour.
Yeah, didn't they also just discover like a rogue planet? Like
Joe Rogan talks about that, right? Like even Joe's kind of down with Zechariah Sitchin. They're like 99% sure there's another planet out there on a huge elliptical orbit, and it basically now what they don't know where the planet's at, but they can see by backtracking the orbits of other planets and whatnot that there's some gravitational pull that would have to signify another planet. So
that's nutso if that's true, and that actually kind of supports the whole Anunnaki theory, in my opinion.
This is what did it for me. This is what really kind of one of the clinchers for me. Like, there's so many evidences. They have the ark with the same dimensions in there. That did it. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the David and Goliath. They have all these similar stories that but the one that did it for me was when they tell the story, or when their history says it goes back to 450,000 years ago when they first came here. They toiled for 200,000 years, and then 250,000 years ago from today, or thereabouts, is when they started creating the Adamu man, right? And I thought, that number stuck with me because it's easy to remember. 250,000 years, I can remember that, 250,000 years ago. And then I was watching a Discovery Channel in this room. There was a TV on that wall. I used to live in this room years ago.
No fucking way, man.
Yeah, I know. And me and my wife were in bed watching a Discovery Channel movie, a Discovery Channel show, and it's about how they trace DNA all throughout how it came to America, and it was through Europe, and then up in like Siberia, and then to Africa, right? And they traced it back to a place in Africa 250,000 years ago. And it's interesting because the Anunnaki, what the Sumerians wrote is that man was fashioned, they called man the Adamu. Adamu was fashioned in the Absu 250,000 years ago, and the Absu refers to Africa. Now, god dang, man, if you have historic texts that are 7,500 years old that are being translated to say man was fashioned 250,000 years ago in Africa, and you're like, man, why would they write that down? Why would they write that? They sit there and said, and then we have science, and science tracks our DNA back to Africa 250,000 years ago. That's pretty coincidental. Like that's really coincidental. And when you take all the other things, the Tower of Babel, Sodom and Gomorrah, all those things are in the Sumerian text too. And you're like, the fact that they knew about the precession of the equinox, and you take all that stuff and you just say, man, what are the odds of all this?
I don't think the precession of the equinox would really be that difficult to figure out.
Well, it'd take 26,000 years to figure it out.
They got time for that. I mean, humanity works like that. And there's no light, like right now when we look up at night, we can't see shit, because we have all this glow.
We couldn't figure it out without computers to run simulations. Like we need computers to tell us that the stars are going to go. Without computers, we wouldn't know about it.
But is it that far-fetched that they wouldn't be able to teach themselves enough about the patterns in the sky that they're going to see over the course of many lifetimes?
So I don't know, man. I don't know. Like that'd be some far out stuff. Like to study the skies long enough to figure out. That's
evolution at its finest, my friend. I mean, how does like anybody learn anything, right? A lot of the times before the internet, you had to learn from somebody that knew some shit. Now you can teach yourself whatever you want, right? But when I got into construction, I had to learn how to build shit from somebody who already knew how to do it, right? And who did they learn from? And so on and so on and so on. So it's just a different profession. I mean, that's how science was passed down from generation to generation. You got to teach people. And it makes sense to have that be a necessary thing to learn in that time.
Okay, so
you know when to plant your shit, you know when, like...
Yeah, but let's go further.
Okay.
They wrote down how they learned it.
Yeah.
They said, here's the story. They have a book called the Creation Story, okay? And it says that astronauts landed on our planet, toiled here for since 450,000 years ago toiled for 200,000 years and then created them.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote that down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not disputed. Like, there's no scholars anywhere going,
that's not what that says.
No, what they're saying is, well, that just is fictional. Like,
okay.
They just decided to write some fictional shit and call it a creation story.
Uh-huh.
So all these things that are translated, they're going, yeah, they said that, but then it comes to this one point and they're going, well, you know, they were into sci-fi, right?
Mm-hmm.
They wrote down some sci-fi shit. It just happens to line up with science.
That's what the scholars are saying?
Yeah, that's what most scholars,
This is a history with a little Star Trek mixed in?
Yeah.
Well,
that's interesting.
But they got hieroglyphs of helicopters and shit like that, man. I mean, there's something going on. We could have had all this stuff several times on this planet, and it just eats itself. You know?
Yep. That's okay. So, what do you think about any possibility that we live in a simulation? We're not even real. You know,
dude.
The Matrix.
All right. I'm not even high, but we're about to go down this. So, have you ever pulled up a picture of an artist's depiction of the multiverse?
I don't think so.
It looks like flesh. Okay. I think like if you just keep zooming in and zooming in and zooming in and zooming in, you're just gonna keep finding smaller shit, right?
We're just as far as we can see today, but you'll probably be able to go in and out infinitely.
Yeah. So you're gonna really like this because if we're the what did they call us from the creation story? The when they created man, Adamu. Okay.
Hence how it translated to Adam in the Bible.
That makes perfect sense, right? So I forgot what I was gonna say. You can almost look at like humans on Earth as cancer, you know, like look at the way the roads are paved all gray.
Yeah, we would definitely be the cancer. We're the non-nature conforming.
We take a shit on the ground, plants die.
Right.
Mm-hmm. My dog takes a shit on the ground, the grass grows. Okay. But if you just keep like microscoping in, you end up finding these worlds with their own like roads and pathways and stuff. And then when you zoom out, you kind of do the same thing, right? The whole Milky Way galaxy looks like fucking atoms, you know, if you really look at it, right? So why is the Milky Way galaxy not a part of this? We can't even wrap our minds around the large body that we might be in. So if you Google like the picture of the multiverse, it looks like flesh, like the backside of flesh, not like skin, but like when you pull the skin back and you look at it that way, it looks just like it. So I definitely feel like black holes are like definitely paths to other parts of the multiverse and all of their own little big bangs, you know? Because if you're going to this singularity into a black hole, it's only natural that there's another side that there's a big bang on, right?
Right.
To me, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me.
Right.
I mean, I have a lot of knowledge and history and stuff to base this on.
See, I'm simpler than that. I just eat, sleep, shit, train. You know what I mean? Like, but
that's the best way to be, man.
You know.
Yeah, because we'll never have real answers.
Yeah.
But there's one of the theoretical physicists who I enjoy listening to is a guy by the name of Nassim Haramein, and I first got turned on to him in a documentary called Thrive. It was put on by him and some billionaire's child, you know. But he went rogue and kind of turned against the New World Order, so to speak. But Nassim comes in there and he talks about exactly what you just talked about. Like I think he's a genius. He's like a mathematical genius. He can like on the level of like, you know, Einstein or something. He was taking college classes in like elementary school or whatever. But he talks about how you can just go infinitely inward or infinitely outward. Infinitely, you know, like forever. You could go in forever. Like basically, you could take the tiniest thing we know about, which I believe is a quark today, and that is probably a multiverse holding universes holding that we just can't see in that far, right? And outwardly, we're probably living inside basically a quark in someone else's world. and it just goes infinitely outward and infinitely inward, and that's some cool ass shit.
I think, you know, if you look at the magnitude of what you just said, it could be very reasonable for us to be living in some sort of simulation. But I don't know, you know.
You know, earlier you said you're an Elon Musk fan. You were talking about SpaceX, and he says there's I think 1 billion to 1 chance that we're not living in base reality. He calls it base reality, but basically he's certain that we're living in a simulation. Sorry, he's basically certain that we're living in a simulation. And I just thought that was interesting for him to say. Like, he was asked about that same thing, and he said, "Yeah, basically, I give it 1 billion to 1. Like, we're in a simulation."
But how does free will work in a simulation, or is it just the illusion of free will?
Well, I look at it like artificial intelligence. Can we create AI with free will? I mean, because isn't that what we would essentially be the same thing? I mean, I would think we could. I mean, to the extent that it's given free will, it would have free will, you know, right? And a good movie it's actually really good if you haven't seen it. I think it's called Her. It has
where the guy falls in love with the computer.
Yeah. And turns out she's having relationships with like everyone in the world. Yeah.
Have you seen Ex Machina?
Yeah, that was good. That was really
similar good vibe, but wow, cold-blooded.
Yeah, AI is like I've watched documentaries on people saying that's going to be the next war. That's going to be the next. That's going to be the worst thing we deal with, right? Like, basically, you know, the Terminator was actually, you know, a prediction. Like, AI is going to like take over the world and fight us.
Yeah.
So there's a show I've been watching, because I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but now I went down the rabbit hole. It's called In Search Of, and there's one of the episodes is AI, and they had some freaky real dolls they're making out of women, and right now it's starting off as obviously a sexual partner for these multimillionaire people, but they're putting brains in these things now. At first it was just, you know, just regular nuts and bolts. They articulate right like a human. Now they're putting brains into where they could talk, and they can tell them what to say. And one of them was like, I'm here to learn everything from you and then take you out. Like, but obviously they're doing it jokingly. But yeah, it was a real. And you can make your own little fake AI doll to whatever spec you want. Big boobs.
I've seen those.
It's so freaky.
And they talk about where they're going to be in
10
years.
In the next 10 years, it's going to be way out there.
There's the guy who wrote there's a documentary called, I think it's called Singularity, and I can't remember the guy's name right now, but it's probably a 7 or 8 year old documentary, and if you watched it today, you would be blown away by the science that he shows. I'm talking blown away, like where they've taken like wafer thin slices of brains and teaching it to fly airplanes, and it can fly and land and goes cruise. Basically, you can see that this brain is still thinking. It wants to explore. It has you know, motivation, and it has curiosity, and it has but well beyond that. Like, this blew my mind 7 years ago when I saw it. But I guarantee you it would blow your mind if you saw it today. And the documentary is called Singularity. I can't remember the guy's name.
They need to like redo that like they did Ghostbusters and shit.
Yeah. Do you find that, like, because I'm close to 40, right? Do you find that you were kind of the same way? And you too, Bobby, like when you were younger, you search for answers? Or is it just getting to a certain age? Because I've found like now, I'm just getting to a certain age where I'm really starting to question shit. Back when, you know, 10 years ago, I didn't really care, or I really just didn't, you know, pay attention, and I just believed whatever news was telling you.
Yeah, for a minute I was like super lefty, but I was real young. Like, I was really interested in the Gore Bush race, but I was 17, so I wasn't able to actually vote. But I was very pro Gore, very like super pissed off about the result of that election and how all that crap went down. But I quit. I didn't care much. Like, I don't know. I think as you get older, you like life experiences collect and stuff, and your focus shifts, and it's like growing up, man. You kind of like wake up. I mean, that's why we kind of call it woke, right?
Woke, yeah.
To see like it's like one thing. You're like, what the fuck is that all about? That makes absolutely no sense from the general way we've been taught to view things. And
well, I'll talk. Sometimes my family will come visit, and I'll be with my aunts and talking, and they'll just say, well, I just have no interest in it. It's not going to change my life. It's they're older than me. Maybe they would have went through this if there were internet in their time, but maybe you grow out of it. I think I'll always go down this path personally, just because it's fascinating to me, because you'll never have the that's the frustrating part, is we'll never really have answers to any of these, right? I doubt it. Maybe in the future we will, but that's the fun part, is the what if, speculating. The most amazing of all these, and it's not one of my questions because it's not really a conspiracy, but do you ever look at any of these megalithic structures? Do you ever like Sacsayhuaman or Machu Picchu or Pumapunku or Kailasi Temple, or do you ever look at any of the Göbekli Tepe, or they Sacsayhuaman? Take Sacsayhuaman for example. I don't think the richest person in the world today could reproduce it. That's crazy. That's crazy when you think about that. The effort that was put into these walls made with these massive stones that are all cut differently and fit together perfectly, that only a CNC machine could lathe out today, right? Could cut out. And I think people never looked at these structures and had them explained what's actually going on with the blocks that were used and how they were set together, and the perfection that you can't get a razor blade to go in between the blocks. And it's like that for all these angles, and it's 3 feet thick like that. We can't do that with any instrument other than a machine. A computer is the only thing that can cut to that degree of detail. No artist could. And they have walls that wrap around for massive compounds. Those blow my mind, right? Sure. That tells me there were civilizations on this world, on this earth, that we are completely ignorant of, and what happened to them. Because they could, at least on some levels, they had to have been more advanced than us. We can't do that. And those structures were earthquake proof. That's the thing. That's the design to them. They were building earthquake proof structures that are thousands of years old today. That we don't know who built them. We'll say Incas that had copper and chisels, right? Like the Incans built them, right? Or the Mayans built them, right? With copper and chisels. It's impossible.
I am amazed, and I'm amazed by much simpler construction efforts too. When we were in Italy, just going into some of those churches and stuff that you just walk up on accident, and seeing the craftsmanship in there, and knowing that it was possible, but still with my construction knowledge, not even understanding or being able to comprehend the actual physical undertaking it took to make these buildings, especially knowing what I know, with today's Florida construction, which is not great, but it still gives you a foundation. But at the same time, I've watched a guy with a chisel and a hammer split a slab of granite in half, and it wasn't that difficult to do. So I've also seen people that I thought were complete and total dumbasses craft things out of nothing that they couldn't find anywhere else to make it work for what they needed to. So
that's all one thing. But taking a stone that has 12 angles, 12, right? 12 angles.
Sure.
That's not a split. You can't, splitting's now gone. That's 3 feet thick. It's a meter thick. And is perfect front to back on all those angles. We're talking perfectly straight. So straight that they don't have to use mortar. And you can't fit a razor blade front or back on any corner anywhere. You can't. We don't have that degree of perfection today. That's arguably we have that today. Arguably,
we don't have that degree of perfection in an affordable way. But we also don't work with slaves anymore. Well, most of the time. So we don't have a fair grasp of what workforce was like back in those days. Think of the undertaking it had to do just to erect all that stuff. There's no way it was ever affordable, you know, no way. So it was all built on the backs of other people, and you know,
I don't think we can build those stones. I am adamant that you can't find anyone.
Let me ask you this:
that could do that.
Did somebody do it before?
What do you mean? Like, did someone, probably with a technology that we don't understand? Like we don't know how
lasers?
They could either lasers or basically like they're able to, more than likely a concrete that appears to be stone to us. Like our concrete we know is concrete. It's concrete, right? You can break it. It's brittle to an extent. The only way we could explain them making those is if they were using something that solidified to basically what we perceive as a stone, but it was liquid at one point for them.
Yeah, that's not possible, only because you have to, when you're building something like that magnanimous and making concrete, you have to have a skeletal structure at some point. So they would have had to be iron workers, you know.
But and the reason, that's one explanation, but the reason you tend to gravitate to an explanation like that is that all of these stones are pillowed.
Yeah.
Meaning
that could be water.
Meaning meaning they're not flat on the faces.
Right.
They pillow in all the way around. And so all the stones are all pillowed in, and this is not wear. This isn't water. It's not how water doesn't wear stones evenly. It wears stones unevenly. It takes the weakest parts of the stone and erodes it. That's how they talk about, like Egypt. These are perfect. These are symmetrical. And either that was an insane task that the effort put into that. First off, there's no markings. Like when they inspect the pillowing, there's no sign of grinding or chipping, right? It's perfectly smooth pillowing. The only way we could achieve those stones are with CNCs that would cut them out, and then they would have to be ground down around the sides and then polished to such a degree, basically to the level that we polish granite, where there's no sign of, but at the same time, these stones aren't perfectly smooth like granite. They're fairly rough. They're kind of rough to the touch, like somehow the stone was born that way, like it was just born to fit there. We really can't. There's really no one that can. The only archaeological, or whatever the term for the proper scientist, the only explanation we have is that they were made with copper hand tools, right? And that's impossible. Like that doesn't work. The only explanation we have doesn't work. And here's another one for you. Like, if you want to be totally mind-bended,
I enjoy it. Yeah,
on a structure, the most amazing structure in the world to me, which it's arguably between Göbekli Tepe and this one, but it's Baalbek. So in Lebanon, in the Middle East, in Turkey, in Lebanon, there's a place called Baalbek. And it's like a 50,000 square foot platform made out of blocks, cut blocks. We have no idea how old it is, because you can't date stone. You can only date things, that are biodegradable or whatever, right? Wood and whatnot. So we have no idea how old it is, but it's got stones in there that are, or it's got blocks that are cut perfectly, that are, if I remember right, like 200 tons. That's insane.
That's a lot.
Insane. 200 tons.
That's a lot.
Just absolutely massive. But you got to look at that. If you ever get a chance,
get enough leverage on it, man. This guy would be able to just
probably about 100.
Yeah.
Get to me. We can get done.
So you plant your feet.
If you ever get when you get home, check out a place called Baalbek.
I will.
It's absolutely amazing. All right, so we'll try to. I know you guys. We're nearing our 3-hour point, so and we'll wrap up at 3 hours. So we'll kind of push the pace now. What are the odds our Earth is ran by reptilian shapeshifters? There's a whole group of
I've
people
heard of this
that
one.
believe this. Yeah. Any possibility whatsoever? Do you think there's even a glimmer of a?
I can't get on that one. I've never done any research on it either. But why would that even matter? Like, if we're ruled by reptilian shapeshifters, why do they care to look like us? They're ruling us.
I guess this, I would theorize on that they can only control us through manipulation. Like, and I'm just, man, I'm not. Yeah. Don't confuse me for the on the bandwagon, but I'll play the devil's advocate. Like, if we knew, they couldn't control us. Like,
how are they controlling us now?
Through manipulation.
By looking like us?
I think that's the. I watch some of this. Like, I'll watch shit like this. I don't care. I'll watch it. Like the big guy behind this, and there's others, but kind of the guy leading the way right now is a guy by the name of David Icke. Mm-hmm. And he
wasn't Alex Jones on the reptilian?
Yeah, Alex Jones as well. Alex Jones, David Icke. There's a few of them, but it's entertaining shit, man. Like. They'll show videos and like it could be digital manipulation, but they'll show like, Miley Cyrus and her pupils will blink sideways, and it's like, what the, it's like either someone just did it and they'll say, no, there's no photo, no video editing here. Of course, you have no idea of something like that, but it is some trippy stuff to watch. Like it's some really, if that really happened, it's like, if that were real and it looks real, it's like, it's convincing, but I'll go down those roads. I don't care. I'll research anything.
I think there's mutants before there's reptilian shapeshifters.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
There's some trippy shit if it were, though, right? Like 20 years from now, we find out that there truly are reptilian shapeshifters.
And how long would it take for us to get our shit back? Because, obviously they're afraid of showing us their real form because that's how they lose their manipulation of us.
And how good would they be at jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Would they be
reptile? That's really the question.
Could you got a neck to choke, son?
Triangle lizard.
But
choke.
I don't know how far your childhood goes back, but we had a show called
V
that we used to watch.
Alien Nation. Yes, you remember that when they had the big heads? V was the lizard people.
Yes, it was the lizard people. And how ironic would that be, right? If they were trying to tell us something,
I remember that show.
They were trying to introduce themselves.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a way of, fooling us, making it so fake, like Elon Musk said, right? It looks so cheesy and fake that it's actually.
They're like sitting around. They're like, all right, guys. So
that's pretty good.
So listen, as soon as they find out that I'm like an alligator and you're like a lizard or whatever, we're not going to be any control anymore. Like, this is a problem.
That would be some trippy shit, though, if it turned out to be true.
How long would it take for us to get used to them ruling us? If they found out and there wasn't anything we could do about it? A generation?
A lot of beatings.
My kids?
Yeah.
But they were sitting, like, okay, I remember. So they were sitting around like, what are we going to do? Because they were like, I really want to come out as a reptile. Because, like, this being in the human body thing sucks. I'm as tall as Bobby Thompson. My walk's all fucked up. But then the other one's like, listen, dude, have you seen what they do with black people and gay people? You do not want to come out as a reptile, man. We just need to lay low and keep ruling these guys.
Yeah. They'd take you up in a helicopter and drop you in the air. And
so we got Duterte, man. Just release
you know what I'm saying? So that I'd follow right in, I was a follower in the military. And
what if Duterte comes out and says, hey guys, I know you thought I was killing all these people, but those were actually reptilian shapeshifters.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot for humanity right now.
Yeah. It'd be a hard one to believe, but maybe.
Bless his heart.
He'd get you there with the right video, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Just show Miley Cyrus with her pupils blinking. I'm good to go.
See?
The earth is flat.
Can't do it.
No possibility.
I tried to convince myself it was.
No possibility? Like, it cannot be flat. It just couldn't be flat.
No, and the ultimate reason why I've decided this 100% and don't even want to argue it another way is because at some point you have to find people that you can trust in life, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can't believe anything. So if you're believing anything you see, it's coming from some source that you have decided for one reason or another you trust.
What if I showed you proof?
I want to see it. Fuck. What everything I've been saying is a sham.
Yeah.
There's the proof right there. NASA released this photo. So no kidding. I tagged Bobby in this on Facebook. And then I sent it to my oldest daughter, bless her heart, Bobby Kilani. And it took her a couple seconds. Like she Googled it. She's like, Dad, did NASA really release it? They're going to piss off a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I said,
I like how the flat Earth pictures like have the Earth, like Earth plated underneath it. But anyway, I've decided, you know, and this may be a total mistake, but I decided to just trust Neil deGrasse Tyson on this one. I let him explain it. It makes sense to me, and that's what I'm riding out with.
But you know, me always being the devil's advocate and always being open, I looked at, is there a way that the Earth could be flat? And actually there is.
Okay.
So if you think of it like this, if the Earth had different dimensions than we were told or thought it had, what if our Earth wasn't this big, but it were this big? And what we thought was our planet was just a space this big, right? Then it could be, like, essentially we could be a prison planet where we're, like some people speculate, like we're paying for sins, or we're learning, or and
I was born in prison.
Right, and now there's tons of these. Like maybe this Earth has a whole bunch of them. This is just one theory, right?
Okay.
But in that situation, you could have, and I like this term. It's a term I learned from the flat earthers: a globular Earth and a flat Earth at the same time. So the Earth, as we know it, could be flat, but it could be on a globular Earth. And it's really interesting, the stuff that because. When I started looking into it, and I was like, all right, well, you know, if I'm a truther, and I claim to be, then I've got to research it. I can't just accept it because the government printed it, right? With today's technology, I should be able to somehow prove the Earth is flat, right? I mean, if they were determining it, I don't know, 500 years ago or whatever it was, I should have the technology. I should have access to technology. So I thought, how would I prove the Earth is round? And the easiest way, I thought, after listening to a lot of arguments, is you'd shoot a laser over land and you'd see the bend, because if you set the laser, which lasers only go straight. If you have a ball and you have a laser, it's going to go out like that. Lasers don't bend, right? They go straight through space and everything. So, because a laser is not affected by gravity. So, if you go out far enough, you should see it should be 3 feet, 5 feet, 10 feet off, right? So other wealthy people had this idea. I thought, okay, well, someone else had to do this. Let me just go YouTube it, right? So some really wealthy people went and bought really, really, really expensive lasers, and they hooked them up, one on shore, and they waited for the flattest day they could on the ocean with no swells. It was, you know, and then they said, all right, let's just take this boat and we'll put up a white board on the back of it, and we'll start at the shore, and it'll be at 3 feet. And if we go out 60 miles, we know that according to Neil deGrasse Tyson or whoever, the drop should be this much, right? And they went out that amount, and there's no drop. It's still exactly sitting at 3 feet. So those videos are out there of wealthy people with intelligent people that you can sit and listen to them, that they know the same shit. They're listening to the same people. They're researching the scientists that are giving the answers that they're supposed to be able to corroborate, and they're intelligent like you or me, and they go out there and they can't find this curve that's supposed to be there. They can't validate the curve, and we have the technology to validate that today. We do. So that doesn't make sense to me. There should be a video of someone with a laser, because according to you can go just Google how much drop there should be. You can, I don't remember what it is right now, but it should be like 7, 8, 15 feet, something like that, over like 30 to 60 miles. There should be that much drop. It's a lot of drop. And they can't see any of it. They can't even find an inch of drop. And that means the dimensions of the Earth well, that one experiment doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Something's off, something's wrong somewhere. Either someone has the measurements wrong, or these people are doing the experiment wrong. But you would think someone would get the experiment right. You'd think the laser experiment, that seems like a good way to prove it, right? That's how I would prove it.
I mean, it's an idea, but there's inherent flaws in that idea. As soon as you're in a boat, you're not in a situation where you're on an even ground, so the boat is constantly doing this. I don't care how flat it is, the boat is still doing this.
No, you can see the laser. The laser's not doing that on the boat. They actually, the whole time they go out.
Because you can't be in the ocean and not move.
No, I've been on the ocean on perfectly flat days. I have. I've been out there. I've been out on the ocean when it was like glass. I have been on the ocean when it's been like glass. And it's not often, but there are days when it is just like you can go out 60 miles and it's just there's no swells.
So I was Navy, right? Mm-hmm. And they have line of sight radio, and you turn up the frequency. I'll probably get this wrong because I wasn't a radio guy, but when the sun goes up, the sun goes down, you lose radio signal. And there's the horizon. They have OTH radio, like over the horizon. Once you get out to a certain distance, you don't pick up a signal until you come over the horizon. And even more simply, where's the edge then? If it's flat, right? Where's the edge? I've sailed all the way around from Norfolk, Virginia to the Middle East and the Gulf, and from San Diego to the Middle East. I've been all the way around the world.
You could do that. Now again, I'm being the devil's advocate. Don't confuse me for a flat earther. I'm just the devil's advocate. You could do that if the earth were pressed flat, you could do that. You could circumnavigate that pie, if you will. You can circumnavigate.
But there's no drop off? Like if you're saying this is the earth, there's an edge here, you fall off.
No,
it doesn't go back to that edge.
It would be this. Here's the interesting part that I used to struggle with too. But let me explain something to you real quick. Just being being the devil's advocate, because this didn't make sense to me too and I wanted to understand it, right? I wanted to understand. So let me explain that. It's called what's the name? The azimuthal equidistant map, the AE map. Let me search for that map. So let's just look at this map. This is the AE map. This is what's really interesting. What are the odds that Antarctica, if you were to take Antarctica and take the perimeter of it and pull it as a line, it would actually encapsulate what we know as Earth? The measurements actually work from what I've seen. Now, there may be someone that disproves that, but I've seen convincing or compelling evidence that says the perimeter of Antarctica would fit around, and that's how we see maps. So here's the thing. If you go south, you will hit Antarctica, right?
Right.
Okay, so compasses don't point south. They only point north. If this were magnetic north.
Magnetic north,
Okay,
right.
well, which is what we navigate from.
Right.
If you went south, you would hit Antarctica. If you went north, you would hit the North Pole. If you went east or west, you would sail around that thing perfectly. Because as you sail, your compass is going to be correcting that north is that way. So to go east or west, you'd think, if I go east and keep going east, I have to go around the world. Well, you would. Even on a flat earth, you would. You could go east or west and circumnavigate the earth, and you could go north and hit the North Pole, and you can go south and hit Antarctica. And it just so happens that all the measurements work. It just so happens that the measurements work.
Do these flat earthers also think the other planets are flat?
No, but again, it doesn't. You could have a flat earth and a round earth at the same time.
I don't think you can, because isn't the whole scientific reason why we can really say that the earth is round is because the mass is so big it collapses on itself and forms a ball, just like all the other planets?
Again, you can have a round and flat earth at the same time. If the dimensions of our earth were wrong, which is what, okay, if let's say...
It wouldn't be possible. What you're saying isn't possible because you would have to have a much smaller earth for it to be flat, because that theory that you're giving is that the earth, as we know, is only a section of a much larger globular earth?
Yeah. So if you had an earth this big and our flat earth were just stuck on it right there, for all intents and purposes, that would be flat. That would be virtually flat.
Okay.
and it would work.
So a flat Earth on a globular Earth.
Yeah, that's one way the theory would work. That is a way the theory would work.
So
it would work like that. And everything, we would have the sun, the stars, the solar system, other planets. We would have a globular Earth. The Antarctica, the perimeter would match up. You know, it's just.
I've just failed to hear one compelling reason why that whole shit would be perpetrated.
Well,
like why?
If we were being held down for some reason, what if the answer were out there? What if they would lose control of us? Like, what if they thought? Because there are people they talk about this control.
Yeah, what are they controlling? Us kicking our own asses?
What if they harvest us? What if they steal our children and molest them and eat them? You know, what if they? You know, I'm saying what I've heard. It just
sounds like they know where we are. I don't see what the point of control is. Like I don't. That's like that's a big problem I have just with like the term they. When people are talking about things like this and they're like, well, they are doing this and they are doing that and this is why they want to do it. And it's like, who are they and what do they want? And we've now gone lifetimes over lifetimes over lifetimes with no rhyme or reason, just...
But wouldn't that be interesting if, look, in 30, 50, 100, 1,000 years from now, we find out that it is a prison planet and that we were being lied to and that people did know and that all the evidence was there, but we just accepted the mainstream media because it sounded completely preposterous that the Earth could be flat, but... There are experiments that should be really simple. Did you know did you know that there was a federal court case where a guy sued saying the Earth was flat and won? There's a federal court case. Yeah, federal court case. Mm-hmm. He sued and said the Earth was flat and won. It's out there. Yeah, I could bring it up. But
I just think on that particular one, it's like, okay, sometimes I like to look at things as if they're true. You know, like we did the exercise earlier. And this is kind of the same thing. What changes in my life if it's true, right? If the Earth is flat, what's the purpose of that being, like, why does that matter? Like virtually nothing changes if something happened tomorrow where you definitively found out the Earth was flat. What changes for anybody?
Yeah, I don't know that anything changes.
Yeah, we just find out that the Earth is flat and some shit happens. But my life's not going to change. You know, like I'm still going to be paying taxes to the U.S. government and shit, and I'm still going to get arrested for, running naked down the street or whatever. Like nothing changes. So it's interesting that it's such a passionately debated topic by people. And it's fun to like talk about like why you think it is or isn't, but it just has no rhyme or reason in like having an impact. Like you can look at the Anunnaki stuff, right, and you can kind of see how if that were true, that knowledge would be useful to us, Yeah. And if it were true, it would definitely change everybody's view of all kinds of stuff, But I just don't see that same effect happening if we somehow found out that they were lying to us this whole time. Like, my electric bill's not changing. My car still goes the speed. Like, I don't see... Science isn't going to change. Because science is still already, like, working with the knowledge that they have. Like, I just...
Yeah, I'm not sure what would change, but it could. You may find out something so mind-blowing, it may change your whole purpose of existence. It may just, what if it were just exactly like the Matrix? Mm-hmm. What if you found out it is a flat Earth and we're enslaved in it, and that they're harvesting. I think the reptilians believe that they feed off of our if you listen to David Icke, which I am fascinated by all these theories. They're just theories and they're fun things. And honestly, you don't know. And here's why I say you don't know is because 1,000 years ago, we were certain the earth was flat. Mm-hmm. You know, we were, and you were the lunatic to say it was round, sure. Right? Like you were like, yeah. So I'm sure something's going to get, you know, maybe it's that the earth is flat again. Maybe it's that we can't go to outer space. Maybe there is a firmament over the earth. Maybe it is a prison planet. But, yeah, that would be mind-blowing if something like that were true.
Yeah. If I'm in prison, I'm in the coolest prison ever, because I'm rocking this prison right now. So I'm down if that's what this is. Just letting you guys know. I don't want you to eat my kids. No. I'm gonna have a problem with that. You're probably gonna have to at least go through me, but you know, I guess I'm okay with it, is what I'm saying. And it's fun to like explore those things. It's silly to like feel like you really have it figured out, though. You know what I mean? Like if you're like, I know.
What if it were? Let's just say for giggles, we found out this were a prison planet, okay, and that there were some overlords running our planet. And what if they were harvesting 1 or 5% of the children? What if they were, manipulating our very existence? You know, changing our diets and determining what we can eat and keeping medicine from us and basically making us suffer, right? Like what if they were making us, what if we found out we could actually be these incredibly harmonious people that like we have the capacity to lead these incredibly fruitful and spiritual lives, and that this is all pushed on us, and they're somehow benefiting from this anxiety that we're feeling and this pressure and this that they somehow do benefit from this system. I think it would change your life. It did change mine. If I found out that were something were true, I'd want to be Neo. I'd want to break the system somehow. Mm-hmm. That would become my new goal. Mm-hmm. If I found out that were true, I don't think I would want to push forward in a fake world. You know, that's, you know.
Well, like Marc was saying, he's living a pretty good life. I think I'm doing all right considering how much people in third world countries suffer. Mm-hmm. And like my equilibrium right now is learning jiu-jitsu and bringing it back to that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like I'm finding like my happiness has increased by a better diet, by the exercise, meeting people like you two and everyone in class. I think are awesome. So for me, like I live a happy life because of the choices that I'm making.
And what if you were fighting for other people, though? What if you found out that 90% of the world were miserable and that this is not the way we were designed?
I think they are. I think 90% of the world probably are miserable, and they need to come to your class.
And what if that were by design, though? Like, what if you found out that there were some dark overlords that designed this system to be this way, you know?
My first thought is it didn't fucking work on me. Okay, so your fucking system's broken already, so we can definitely get through it.
Well, they're okay with 10%,
some
1 to 10%. Happy. They're all right with that.
Yeah.
I don't think I could go on with my life. I don't think my life would be the same.
Would joy be the antidote? You know, because if they're getting their energy from like holding us down and making us fight each other and be stressed out all the time, would the antidote to that be finding joy? And is that how you defeat the lizard people that have created, you know what I mean?
Well, I think you'd have to know who the people are that are making this happen.
Because ultimately,
you have to break their system.
Yeah, but look, if joy's the antidote, they're fucked.
Well, why do you think they keep cannabis from us, right? Like, why do you think? I mean, that's look at the prison system. That's criminal right there. The people that made that system that said, they used to sell cannabis in Sears. You know, that you used to be able to go in Sears and buy pot.
It's gonna happen. Like in the next 20 years, cannabis, like weed for whatever medicinal or recreation use. I mean, it's already changing now.
But Monsanto, there's a very good chance, the way I see it going with the stuff I see, is that it'll all be manipulated.
It will
100% of it.
It's already being happening.
Yeah,
it's already happening.
You won't get cannabis like you used to get 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Oh, some
it'll
crazy
be 100% engineered,
yeah.
and it'll be, oh, you want to smoke cannabis? Great, but we're not going to tell you this, but it's going to start malforming your organs, and you're going to die from it, right? And then we're going to say, we told you so. Why didn't you listen to us? We tried to tell you it was bad.
That would be shitty for sure. But the way I see it is that they let it be legal in Denver, which is an awesome fucking place to go to.
For sure.
Okay. They did it right over there. And I think that the people that have the money, that spend the money to make money, went, holy shit, there's a whole bunch of people that got involved and made a lot of money. Because one of the cool things that people are doing in Denver is they have these weed shops.
I've got a cousin who's got 3 dispensaries and a grow license with 80 acres. He's killing it.
Yeah. Well, then you know that the bank wasn't taking his money for a minute, at least for a minute. So.
I know that he couldn't keep his money. That's his biggest problem is he can't put the money in the banks.
Do you know what they're doing out there with it? They're investing in real estate, right? So they're taking all this cash they can't put in a bank and they're gentrifying the fucked up areas of Denver, and it's working like a charm. But the people are seeing this model happen, right? People are happy. Average people are doing good for themselves. The state made so much fucking money, they're giving it back to people.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, there's very rich, smart people out there that go, if we do this right, that can all be ours. And that's what's happening in Florida. They're limiting the number of people that can grow. They've limited the number of medical licenses. They've made it extraordinarily expensive to obtain. So all of the upper corporate people can get all this shit and rule this new industry that's been created. So they're taking the lessons from Denver where everything works cool, and they're about to fuck it up everywhere else by putting the corporate spin on shit. They're just waiting for the right time, and I'm personally thinking that weed will be federally legal before Trump is out of office.
But
mainly because of the cash grab.
It's the guy who doesn't want it to be legal, right?
Yeah, well, Trump is notorious for letting people do their job, but at the same time, they've been trying to drag him through the mud the whole time. So he's got to have a powerful thing to go into the second term. I feel like something like that is in his back pocket for if he needs it, and then definitely before the end of the second term, it's going to be federally legal, just because it's going to be done in such a way over the course of 8 fucking years where Philip Morris is going to be the #1 cannabis company in America, if not the world. You know what I mean?
But I think what's gonna be available to the world is gonna be GMO modified cannabis, and that's the sad part.
It's already what's available here.
Right.
You can't buy flour with a prescription. You know what I'm saying? It's already there. So that's a done deal. Yeah. And there's argument that it's better right now, but it can't stay that way because they're gonna do like bath salt experiments, where they're gonna try and create the fucking shit out of thin air, just like you said.
Yeah.
All
right, let's we're gonna go down to the last section, which is all BJJ and MMA related. So we'll because my goal is to keep it 3 hours. But so here, these should be pretty straightforward. Have you studied any other martial arts other than jiu-jitsu?
No.
And what's your rank?
I am currently a 4-stripe purple belt.
How long did it take you to get there?
4 stripes or purple?
To where you are now, 4 stripes.
I think I'm on year 8. So I haven't done the math definitively, but I'm 8 years.
Has that been consistent? A pretty consistent 8 years?
For the most part, when I decided to go into real estate, I was so miserable. I was doing my job and jiu-jitsu, and I had to have a tough conversation with myself, and I had to step away from jiu-jitsu to create the time I needed to build this other business. But my goal at the time being to create a situation for myself where I could do jiu-jitsu more. And it worked like a fucking charm.
Nice.
Okay, so yeah, that's the only, every once in a while I get real busy and I don't show up for a week or whatever, but for the most part I've been in it the whole time.
And your lineage we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
We already talked about where that. What made you start jiu-jitsu? What was the catalyst?
It was UFC, man. I mean, you see the first couple UFCs and you're just like, holy fucking shit, what's going on with that? And then for me, I sat on it for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, like I was like, dude, that would be so awesome. And then one day in Jacksonville, I was like, I'm going to go check this out. And Sheely's place was the first place I ever went for a sample class. And then I found out how much money it was to like be a member. And at the time, I wasn't doing so good. So I was like, I just can't make that kind of commitment. So I was done then. And then one day I just, was like, this is something I want to do for me.
Yeah.
I have decided that it's worth the price. Now let's go do it. It's the best decision I ever made.
Yep. Yeah, that was it. Watching Royce Gracie beat all those, answered the question, right? You always have those arguments with your friends, like, who would win, Jean-Claude Van Damme or Steven Seagal? Growing up in the 80s and 90s,
I think what blew my mind most was I heard about Royce Gracie long before I saw Royce Gracie. So I was only 10 years old in 93. So I didn't even see my first, I didn't see UFC 1 probably until 99 or 2000, So, but I had heard, you're joking with your friends, you're like, dude, the Gracie brothers, those guys are badass, and all you think in your mind's eye is this fucking jacked, big motherfucker just working people, because you don't know any better, right? And then when you finally see it and you're like, that little guy? That means me as a little guy, I have hope for my situation, what more do you need to see? Yeah,
it was awesome, man.
And then the moment when you start putting stuff together that you can actually recognize on TV, and you start getting just the slightest bit of knowledge when you're watching a fight, what's actually going on, what somebody's trying to accomplish, that was a big motivator for me after I got started to keep with it.
I know in my second or third year, I just wanted to go to clubs and hope people would bump into me.
Dude.
I was just going to clubs, checking everyone's shoulder. I was a dick.
I'm like, I wish a motherfucker would, and I wish if he does, he's wearing a big old bomber jacket, because then my work's easy. Fight me with a bomber jacket. Yeah. Try it. Don't try it. Don't do it.
No. Have you ever been in a street fight?
Yeah.
Obviously, right? So, how many would you say you've been in?
I've only been in one. It was a long time ago.
How'd it go down?
So I was in first grade, and believe it or not, that is the only street fight I've ever been in. In first grade, there's this kid, every day, man, it was fourth grade actually. He called me Bald Eagle because I had a buzz cut. I just started growing my hair, so I'm super happy about that. I've had a buzz cut I'm 35 for probably 33 years of my life, just all day. So he called me Bald Eagle every day, and for some reason it pissed me off, and I caught him out in a park one day. He called me Bald Eagle. I ninja turtle kicked him right in his chest, the jump kick. He fell on the ground. We were wrestling around, and all of a sudden this guy just pulls me off of him I'm the fucking bully. And he puts me up against a tree, and he's like, there's always going to be someone bigger than you, man. You can't go out your whole life picking on all these people. And I'm like, it was me, he was, and then he was my friend. So that's been the only fight. But I got this face that if you don't know me, I look mean or something. So every time after that, when it's come down to it, people have always backed down. I'm not an instigator. I'm a very passive, friendly person. Even in my pre-jiu-jitsu days when I was wound tight. But yeah, if people have tried to push me far enough in the past, and it just didn't work. So I'm not a big fighter.
Talk about your style. So stylistically, man, there's a lot of styles in jiu-jitsu today, right? You got 10th Planet, you got the leg attackers, Sambo style, you've got traditional Gracie jiu-jitsu, you've got catch wrestlers, you've got the Josh Barnett's, you've got how would you describe the style that you've developed? Stylistically, how's your jiu-jitsu?
Fundamentally, it is a pressure, top-heavy wrestling, jiu-jitsu game, because that's Daniel Marias, and that's just the only thing I learned in the beginning. So that, I think, is developed pretty nicely into some pretty good, I'm a very top pressure, eliminate all the space type of person. So I like to stick to you like glue, grind on you until I feel you give up and finish. And I like that feeling when your opponent basically tells you he's ready to die. You know what I mean? And that's, to me, that's more satisfying than the sub, is the deep mental understanding that I have with my opponent at a certain time that they've given up.
Yeah.
Las what I look for. And sometimes it creates a boring match, I'll be honest, because I like to have people give up before I'm, much into finishing. But at the same time, I think I mainly train for like street related scenarios. So I respect the points game and I respect all of those like tournaments and stuff, but my main motivation is to make sure that if I'm approached outside of the gym, that I'm doing the smart things that I need to do to come out of that altercation in the best shape possible. So I don't, even when we're rolling, I don't give people a lot of space to punch me in the face. I'm hiding, like I'm very compact, but I'm stuck to you. Once I get stuck to you, it's hard to shake me.
Y'all cover a lot of the self-defense, a lot of the standing self-defense, a lot of alio self-defense.
Yeah, not as much, not really. I mean, we do like a handful of basic stuff on a pretty regular basis, but we don't have. Well, I should take it back. We actually over at Knuckle Up have recently started a 2 times a week straight self-defense from stand-up classes. So we've definitely been focusing on it a lot more recently. But no, not really too much.
What would you say your best attack is? What do you do more than anything? What's the number one submission you get? I'm going to say armbar. You look like an armbar guy to me.
Not as much, but when I have it, it's fucked city. But I got these short legs and stuff, so sometimes it's easier to just kind of ball me up and get around it. Definitely rear naked choke. I feel great about all kinds of different collar chokes from the bottom. And then I'm not like Kimura heavy, but just in the past year I've noticed that those have been a lot more available. Transitioning from position to position and eventually getting that finish, but not necessarily attacking the finish from the get-go.
Right.
But I would say, and it also depends on what game I'm playing. If I'm in a gi game, I'm more likely to finish you with a collar choke than anything else. And the no-gi game is probably rear naked choke. Yeah, rear naked choke, Kimura arm.
Your games you try to get to the back pretty much.
I've been concentrating on it a lot lately, yeah. Different paths to the back, and not letting my back be taken as easy as it has been. So that's like kind of my focus right now.
Yeah.
And then me and Cold Breath's been working a lot of like lapel stuff, and it looks really complicated to me, and it's not overly complicated. We've been working a lot of that stuff, man. That's been fun to like open that chapter up, because it's like a whole new thing to explore. So we've been doing a lot of that lately, but I haven't been really implementing a whole lot of it into my game like day to day.
You can never learn it all, man. There's so much. There's too much. How about leg locks? Are you big on them, or?
I'm not afraid to leg lock somebody. I don't fear leg locks. I've seen more of the no-gi version that people do is like is leg lock heavy, but if I'm available, you can arm bar me as easily as you can leg lock me if I fuck up. But if in a no-gi situation, I'm much more conscious of my legs. I got no problem with it. I got no problem with any of it, man. Like,
do you train in an environment where leg locks are okay, or are they frowned upon? Some schools frown on them, you know?
We don't frown on it. We don't specifically train a whole bunch in leg locks. We don't frown on it. We do like take it easier on the white belts, you know, and we don't like put them in complicated leg locks. And me personally, I will remind somebody of the rule, and then if we agree we're good, we never have to have a conversation about it again. And I do that just because of the respect I have for our coaches and stuff. But if I see like a white belt like starting to attack a leg, I'm just like, you know, if you're attacking my leg, I can attack your leg. As long as we have that understood, you do what you want. It's fine. Because I don't feel like it's any more dangerous. I don't feel like there's more injuries. I think people just have a fear of it that is unreasonable. And I also think that there are people that are capitalizing on the lack of knowledge, and it gives them a false sense of where their real jiu-jitsu is.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a bit of a rub to it, but I think it's absolutely should be probably introduced early on. It shouldn't be. I don't think white belts should be not allowed to do it. I don't think there should be.
Like anything, if you're taught right, and you're taught how to be safe and when to tap and not to wrench anything, you know. We honestly, I teach everybody here, and we do them at all levels, but we have long talks about, like, nobody here wrenches on a leg, you know. It's like we're very respectful with our opponents. Like, we catch and release, or we'll get a heel hook, but just hold it, you know, and just look at them like, dude, you gotta tap, you know. It's like, I could wrench, you know. But yeah, I think if it's done right, it's really what it's about. If you do it right, there's not a problem with it.
Well, it's like that with every position, though.
Yeah.
You don't want anybody wrenching on your armbar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if I'm rolling with this guy over here who clearly can, you know, outmuscle me, if he gets me deep, right, I'm tapping here before I'm here and giving him that opportunity to snap it. So that's just playing smart, you know. When I already know I fucked up several moves ago to get here, so it's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just, you know, it's kind of silly that there's people that have like picked a side on whether leg locks are like should be taught early on or not. I'm just like, if it's new knowledge, let's teach it. You know?
Yeah, agreed. I want to learn everything I can. I think there's a time and place for any submission. Sure. You know, it's the more knowledge you have, the better.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite MMA fighter?
My favorite? I probably have to say Anderson Silva, man. I'm an old school Silva fan.
Yeah.
I still love that guy.
Yeah, he's not the same after he broke his leg, though. He never had the same confidence. You could see that, you know, just once he had a bone, which I can understand. I think I'd be the same way. If I kicked someone and snapped my own leg, right, like, it'd be kind of hard to come back with that same. It's like your own weapon just went against you. You know, it's like the backfire of a gun. It's like you're never quite as confident shooting that gun again.
You know, I'm sure he had that to deal with, but one of the shittiest things that happened, and I feel like it kind of happened to Anderson, was the atrocious Bisping decision. It changed the history of the UFC, right? Because Bisping got an opportunity to fight Rockhold because he beat Anderson Silva, not because he deserved a chance to fight Rockhold. And I still feel like Rockhold, 6 out of 7 matches, probably going to beat the living shit out of Bisping. So with that decision against Anderson Silva, who was already definitely starting to get old, you just lose a step. He's going down that road, right? But that was the opportunity he had to really solidify himself as the greatest of all time. But he got fucked in the UK because then he could have stepped in for that Rockhold match. And I think Anderson Silva could beat Rockhold today. You know? Maybe not. Rockhold's still pretty young. But I thought that was a travesty. Yeah. You know? And I had no doubt in my mind that GSP was gonna beat Bisping. Yeah. I was there for that. I went to New York. It was a good time.
Yeah, I'm an Anderson fan. For me, it's Kazushi Sakuraba. The
that's
dude
old
just
school.
God, yeah, that's old. I grew up Pride. Like I was hooked on Pride, man. So Kazushi was, man, he had heart. He just fought everyone, all sizes, and his style was badass. Favorite BJJ practitioner? Or whose style do you admire the most in jiu-jitsu?
I would love to be good enough at jiu-jitsu to have Jeff Glover's tournament attitude. I like him a lot, but mainly because I feel like he keeps the fun in jiu-jitsu, and you like keep it playful is definitely a thing to me.
Yeah, Jeff's got ridiculous jiu-jitsu. I actually was studying his DVDs and found this clip. I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet, but it was hilarious. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to show you one of my favorite entries to the." I posted that, right? That's actually my post. I posted on the internet because I thought, dude, people need to see.
Now we're
he's so funny. Like the dude's just a funny dude, right? But he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Dude's ridiculous.
It would be tough for me to say I had a favorite.
Yeah, but he'd be up there. He'd be one of them. There's a few. Personality's huge. I like Kyotera. I like the fundamentals of Marc Bracy. It'd be tough for me to say too.
Kyle was cool to meet, man. He put on a really good seminar at our place.
Yeah.
What I liked most about Kyle being in town was he won't, like, his drilling philosophy is to never allow somebody to do anything. Like, to give the resistance every time. Like, you can't learn it if you're not having the resistance. So he'd pick a guy from the seminar to be his dummy, and he'd be like, well, then we go here, and this is how we slide in. And then he'd fucking yell at the guy and be like, stop letting me do that. Like, stop. Like, I need to work this move. Like, you just gonna let me just knee slice you straight into side control? What are you gonna do? You're gonna try and get this knee in, right? So he's like making you do it live.
That's a different approach, because it's not how we're taught,
Yeah, he's just he doesn't let people resist. And I thought it was cool because obviously it's worked for him. He's done really well. And it's similar to the way that I like to do things. I don't really, it has never been my place to say what we're doing. But generally when I'm like off in the corner with my partner, we'll do repetitions like with no resistance. I rep as many times as they're going to let me rep in the amount of time they're letting us rep.
Yeah.
So if they're like, do it 5 times and stop, I'm like, okay, we'll get to 5, but I'm going to keep repping until you call us back in. So like the first few reps are totally no resistance, and then usually I'm with like a lower belt, so I'm trying to explain to them, in a regular situation, you can expect your opponent to do maybe this. So this is what I want you to do while we're drilling it for these next 3 reps, and I'm going to do it the same for you, so they get to not only get to do it easy, feel how it's different when there's a little resistance, and then I'll usually put perspective when they're actually going for it, where they really need to be super strong. But that's the way Kyle does it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I believe in little to no resistance from that's just my philosophy, because that's what I was told from my instructors. Like, I was told, there shouldn't be resistance, but B, it's like they're already struggling to learn the move. It's like they don't even know a move is a path, right? And you don't even know the path yet. It's like you're trying to learn this path and someone's fucking up your path. It's like, dude, I don't even know the path yet. Let me figure out the fucking path, and then we'll put some resistance on it. So,
but the path changes with resistance. So you're plotting a new path when the resistance gets put in there.
Yeah, and then you
and
do
I
a
think
different move.
True. It also depends on what you're drilling. Wouldn't you agree? Because, like, if we're drilling arm bars from guard, I don't need resistance from him to be able to arm lock him on both sides, right? However, if I'm doing the scissor sweep, right, I need his reaction if I'm going to do it the way I was taught, where I push back and I use his momentum to come back to actually take him over. If he's not giving me resistance and I'm just flopping over dead weight the whole time, it's like, yeah, I get this mechanic, but as soon as resistance is entered, my whole thing has changed, because I've been pulling this guy on me to roll him over, but when he gives me resistance, what I should be doing is pushing him away so he can push back to get that. You know what I mean? So I think you have to introduce expected resistance, like after you've done it a few times.
Yeah, what we do, the way I do it is I teach, we'll do it with no resistance. Let's get ready to go off. Well, that was our last question. So did it just go off?
Yeah.
That was our last question. We'll finish with that instead of putting another battery, because that was at the end. So
I dig it.
I'll just add a little thing there saying we wrapped up after that. But to answer that question, the way I like to teach is with no resistance, and then I answer what they'll do. Like, for example, I'll say, okay, I'll go to hit a scissor, right? So we'll rep the scissor, no resistance. But then I get, all right, you go to hit it and it just stops.
Yeah.
What happens? You lean back, pull that leg back, and kick out the leg and hit it with the fat boy variation, right? And then we'll rep that. And then I'm like, I teach the solution to what I've learned is their resistance, right?
Sure.
So I kind of do it that way. That's how I do it. But
it's the same thing, really.
Yeah, different take on it, but maybe the same result. But yeah,
I think at our school we don't really review again, and that could be a little bit of a flaw, because we won't really take one move and go over like several variations. So I kind of take it upon myself to.
Everything I do is. Everything leads to the next move. Everything. So I don't teach disconnected moves, and I'm usually 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 moves.
Yeah.
So we always say, for me, it's taking what I've learned, and I'm like, all right, I'll start here. Let's rep that. That's what I do. And I'm like, okay, but when you do this, you hit this resistance, and you answer with this.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, but if I do this, if we rep that in 5 times, they may counter with this, and then I counter with this, and then we hit that one 5 times. So I kind of do it that way. No resistance. They learn the path, and I am teaching them what happens when that resistance comes in, and they do give the resistance. I mean, that's how you get to the next move, right?
Yeah,
it's
you got to it. Yeah. That's a good way to do it.
Different way, But that's cool, man.
And he iterates about being an uke, giving control up, right, and like letting the guy get their arm underneath the back of the head, right, and I remember rolling the other day, and someone was trying to slip their hand underneath my neck, and because you pointed that out, like, hey, I didn't figure that out till like blue belt, I think is what you said, like you were just giving away. I was like, I made sure, like, okay, head like deep on the back of the mat, and if you wouldn't have pointed that out, I was giving it to him at first, and I was like, wait, no, Bobby said, don't give him shit if you're really, and so.
From repping things like so many times, like in you're being the uke, and it's like, this guy's going to get side, he's going to reach under and get his double grip. Right. And it's like, you rep that so many times and you're being a good uke that you don't realize that somebody comes in side control and you almost raise your head for them. Like, that's what we do, right? It's like, I think I was training for like a year or two before I realized, man, I'm just giving shit. Actually, I think if someone told me, I think like Marcelo or someone told me, like someone I was training with, and they're like, dude, you're just giving shit up. And I was like, crap, that's the way I've been doing it. That's the way, I didn't even realize I was doing that shit. But cool, man. We did 3.5 hours, brother.
Sweet.
And that's what they've been doing. They've all been 3.5 hours. But I kind of wanted to, if Joe Rogan can keep that interest for that long, and there's people that are listening to him while they're listening to him, so it's cool. Yeah, well, man, I'm glad you can make it out. The next one, man, maybe we'll do it again in 6 months or a year or something like that if you get bored.
I think it flowed pretty well. What do you think?
I do. I think